Welcome everyone to Learn Over Lunch. My name is Megan Duquette. I'm California ReLeaf Education and Communications Program Manager. We're so excited that you could join us today. We started our Learn Over Lunch series in 2020 as a peer-to-peer learning opportunity for our ReLeaf Network members. It's a great opportunity for the ReLeaf Network to get together, share about programs and best practices, and we're just very excited that you all could join us today. You can learn more about our upcoming programs as well as watch past presentations by visiting our website, californiareleaf.org/LOL. Today, I have the great honor and privilege of introducing you to our Little Manila Rising team. We have Nicolas Tamayo, who is the Urban Forestry Director, as well as Brianna Garcia, who is their Environmental Justice Communications Manager. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you both. And like I said, we're really excited to have you and hear from you today.
Thank you all. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicolas Tamayo. I'm the Urban Forestry Director at Little Manila Rising. We're a nonprofit in South Stockton, California, and we are two parts of the Urban Forestry team. And today we're going to talk about our job training program, which is called the Green Paths Program. I'm going to share my screen because we do have a small slideshow. Oh, Bree's got it. We can get right into the agenda. So today we're going to talk a little bit about why we started our training program, what we're aiming to accomplish with it. We'll talk a little bit about South Stockton and the history there because we are students of history at Little Manila Rising. And then we're going to talk about the curriculum that we are piloting currently and hope to finalize and really kick off over the next 4 years. And then talk a little bit about some of the gaps that we've identified in our project, how we aim to fill them, and then go into a Q&A where we hope that we can learn from all of you guys about some of the challenges in administering an urban forestry workforce program in California. So we do have a little icebreaker for you all to put into the chat. Please share your name, where you're calling from, and what is your favorite thing about trees. So while you're doing that, I am going to go into the presentation, but please take that time. All right. So a little bit about us. Little Manila Rising was founded in 2000 by Dylan Delvo and Don Mabalan. They were South Stockton natives who went to school in the Bay Area and learned about the history of their community in college, and came back wondering why they were never taught, that history in school. And it coincided with the last remaining parts of historic Little Manila being condemned for destruction to build a strip mall. The historic Little Manila district was the largest population center of Filipinos outside of Manila from 1930 to 1960. And then when they built the Crosstown Freeway, that community was destroyed and displaced across the country. And so they fought to preserve those buildings and were successful. And then in 2017, Don passed away from an asthma attack, and our organization recognized the need to also preserve and save the community, the actual people in the community. And so we started doing environmental justice work. And our program, the Urban Forestry Program, is one outgrowth of that. We also have an asthma remediation program called Dawn, in homage to her, where we go and do asthma checks and help people get connected to inhalers, remove carpet, any asthma triggers from their house. We'll drop links to all that stuff in the chat. And so our project was actually funded by TCC, which is a state grant through the Strategic Growth Council. In 2017 and 2018, the community came together to propose a planning grant called Stockton Rising. And the community identified urban forestry as one of the priorities that uh, we wanted to address because South Stockton has some of the lowest canopy coverage in the state. And if you look at the tree equity maps compared to some areas in North Stockton, have a 10-15% difference. Some parts of South Stockton only have 3% canopy coverage. And so it was a huge need, and we are fortunate to be the team to address that. So this goes back to redlining, like most cities in across the country that were redlined in the 30s. There are distinct markers that show the inequity and disinvestment of certain communities of color. And so this is the Crosstown Freeway, and that's the dividing line between South and North Stockton, where particulate matter is at heightened levels. Asthma is in the 99th percentile in the historic Little Manila district and other parts of South Stockton. We experience increased heat island effect. And like I said, we have really disparate low canopy coverage across South Stockton. So in addition to this training program, we also have a planting project. So we have staff, we have community foresters that are planting and maintaining trees on city right of way. We're a partner with the City of Stockton's Public Works Department. And this is just one project of ours. And we call it the Green Paths Program, which is a 15-week cohort model workforce development program in which we enroll 4 participants at a time in an intro to community and urban forestry training program, where we cover right tree, right place, doing site assessments and working with the utilities, understanding spatial requirements and how to plant certain species under power lines, and understanding planting width along planting strips. We go into tree biology, we do soil testing, practice species ID, and we teach proper planting techniques, young tree maintenance, structural pruning, and then offer an assortment of certifications, OSHA 10, first aid, CPR, Narcan response, and best practices with tool use. And then we go into the history of South Stockton and why the infrastructure doesn't necessarily accommodate urban forestry or trees. That's by design. And so we go into that. Why does South Stockton have 3-foot wide tree wells rather than 6-foot wide tree wells like they do at North Stockton? And what does that mean for an urban forester? What kind of decisions do you have to make as an urban forester with that type of infrastructure? Which trees can you use in smaller tree wells? And how do you work with your public works counterpart to make the best decision? It's been an amazing experience. We first kicked this program off in 2021. We had just come on board ourselves, and we're really under the gun to meet a deliverable for a grant and get a cohort going. And we brought a group in, and we're able to pilot our first training program, which didn't have a real established curriculum, and we're really just going out and planting trees and teaching in the field as best we can. And it's only been, the last year and a half where we've been able to focus on a curriculum development plan and look at the standards that are in like the ANSI 300 and the ISA training exam booklet, and really get connected to the networks like the TWO network, the Tree Equity Workforce Network that American Forest provides. They actually have a curriculum that you can download and borrow and use. And they offer funding opportunities if you do use them. And so we've learned a lot about, what actually we should be teaching as far as urban forestry standards go, but also like the holistic approach to taking care of the people too. And so In addition to like the urban forestry and arboricultural training, we also offer the to round out the offering across the 15 weeks is a personal growth development plan, which, you know, what are the milestones that you want to hit? What are the interests that you're coming in with? And then how are those changing over the 15 weeks? What's piquing or sparking an interest? And how do we like get you into the next opportunity that you can build off that? We do value mapping, vision boards. We practice conflict resolution and offer de-escalation trainings, financial literacy trainings. We connect with a local chef that was formerly with the Edible Schoolyard Farm here in Stockton to offer nutritional health classes. We have all of our trainees go through a mental health first aid training, which is really about how do you respond to somebody in crisis, but also how do you handle your own internal crises? What are the resources available for you? Um, we also help folks navigate the mental health networks and get connected to therapists. Fortunate for us, Little Manila Rising has a separate program that offers free mental health support. And so we connect our participants to that program so they can access those resources. And like I said, a lot of folks in South Stockton are struggling with asthma, or they have kids that are struggling with asthma. And so we're able to make that connection with our other program so that folks are, you know, being taken care of with their health as well. We also do the professional development side. So I forgot to mention this, but we primarily work with older adults. And we work with a lot of folks who are in reentry, have spent many years in prison, and are getting out and working through transitional work programs. And so in addition to just doing basic skill building with time management, how to work in a team, we also have to start at, you know, the ground floor with like even using a computer on a regular basis. We help folks set up their email address and get in the habit of checking it regularly, set up online banking, use their mobile phone to do more than use as a phone, but also navigate the web. And we challenge them by also putting them in a position to use Tree Plotter. You know, we train, you know, in Tree Plotter and how to use GIS softwares and be on a computer and be comfortable using a computer for many different reasons. All of our community foresters are our best representatives to get people involved and aware of what we do. So we teach public speaking skills, word processing, and are always stressing, you know, the best practices for planting and maintaining trees, workplace safety, and building off of their experience over the 15 weeks and finding that next opportunity with prospective employers. And then we really value land immersion. So like I said, we go pretty deep into the history of South Stockton and understanding environmental racism and the legacies of redlining in South Stockton. But we also understand our position geographically along the Delta watershed. And so, you know, understanding the ecosystems that exist in our natural habitat, the native species that are predominant in our area. And also we're in the hotbed of agriculture. So connecting and understanding the role of urban agriculture in our community, going out and helping maintain orchards. With ESY, Edible Schoolyard, they have a 5-acre urban farm here, and we've been able to help do some land maintenance and management with them. And then we always are trying to get folks into nature, and so we have you know, a budget to take folks out to go to the forest and to national parks and get guided tours and just understand the broader ecosystem that our cities exist in. And so to date, we've held 3 cohorts. We've graduated 22 individuals and had 7 job placements. We've had one person get placed with West Coast Arborists, where they're still working in their Bowman lot as a groundsman, and just kind of working in their mill area and processing wood and with their nursery here in Stockton. We've had two graduates go on to work for Caltrans landscape division in Sacramento. And then we've actually been able to hire quite a few folks onto our own staff as we realized we can't really follow a volunteer model to meet the needs of our community as far as planting trees go. We actually need to revise our grant budgets to hire folks onto our staff. That's really allowed us to create a career ladder from our training program to our, to paid full-time positions with LMR. And so we've hired three graduates of our training program onto our community forester staff, which has been amazing. And we hope to continue to grow our capacity and fill gaps by, really building out this program. And so our next steps, these are things that we've really identified a need for over the last few years. We need a home base. We're currently one of many programs at Little Manila Rising. And so we are hoping to identify funding to find a warehouse/office space that can house our planting operations and our training program. We want to set up a shop because we've been able to purchase equipment such as work trucks, a van, and water wagons so that we can go out and do consistent weekly watering and maintenance of the trees that we plant. And we're planting hundreds of trees, so we need a site for staging nurseries where we can also teach a little bit about irrigation setup and structural pruning, and just taking care of trees before they get planted in the ground. We also have identified that beyond the tree planting, there's a big world out there as far as urban forestry goes. And a lot of our graduates realize pretty quickly that planting and maintaining trees every day is not something that they want to do or that their bodies can handle. And so how do we retain those folks in the field? How do we, find the opportunities in urban forestry that don't necessarily mean that you're digging a hole and picking up a 50-pound tree and planting it? And so we're fortunate to have Delta College, which is our local community college here in Stockton. They have a really robust horticulture program and actually offer an urban forestry certification, which is, a body of courses that at the end you get the certification in urban forestry. And so we actually have started having the conversations about being the field site location for their students so that their students will get their field hours to complete their program by completing our program. And my hope is that we can have that work both ways. So for grad participants in our program who have never thought about going to college, this is their way in. They hope maybe even get a couple units out of completing it and are enrolled into Delta College if they don't find their next employment. Because we have our own equipment, having in-house mechanics work and potentially housing a mechanics apprenticeship, which Delta College also offers, would be huge for us in limiting our costs for keeping our equipment in operating condition, and also provide an opportunity for somebody who is like more prone or leaning more towards working with equipment and managing equipment rather than the tree planting side of things. And then GIS offers another pathway for folks to continue doing urban forestry work through like inventory management, identifying locations, and working with like the public works team to do our city's inventory. And then lastly, yeah, I think those are the main things. We really want to offer these specialized tracks in the future for graduates who want to continue learning maybe a more specific task like these GIS or mechanics opportunities. Even nursery management is something that we think could really benefit our community and learning how to start a nursery. I know there's a lot of grants out there now for nonprofits to explore what it would mean to start tree nurseries. And we are hoping to hire a full-time coordinator for this program. So currently I'm the facilitator of this program, but we really need somebody that can provide consistent one-on-one support and with like supporting with job placement and be the primary facilitator. So with that being said, I know that the chat was blowing up. So we could jump into the Q&A.
Thank you so much. That was really amazing to hear all the good work that you're doing. We did get a lot of comments and a couple of questions. And so I'm just going to start with our first one. It was answered in the chat, but I think it'd be helpful for everybody to hear it. The question was, how many days and hours a week is the program for your cohort?
Yeah, it's 3 days a week and 24 hours per week. So we do 8-hour days. And it pays, so it's $17.50 per hour. It's not stipend based. They are listed as staff as seasonal part-time staff. We did explore like having a stipend at the end of the program, but we realized that for a lot of folks, not just in reentry, but anybody who has like got bills to pay, has rent due, stipends are a barrier to entry for workforce programs. If you aren't a youth living at home, we really want this to be something that can serve older adults really that are looking for opportunities to get back into the job market and be contributing members of our society, of our city, our community. All of our graduates come from South Stockton, have made mistakes or been in the wrong situation in the past and are trying to do different. And so we pay by the hour to meet them where they're at. And we also set it at 3 days per week because, you know, that gives somebody the flexibility to pick up another job, do another program, you know, all within a regular work week.
We've got a couple more questions in the chat, and then we'll open it up to folks who want to ask it verbally. So our next question is, how do you define older adults? What ages have you had in your cohort spectrum?
Yeah, I think we distinguish older adults from youth. The youth really is 18 to 24, it seems, for most like grants and you know, policies. Overall, we've worked with people who are over 40. And we have had a couple of folks who are right out of high school. But really it's over 40. The oldest participant in our program was 60. And I think that was a big reason why we've started to really think about what else is out there in urban forestry beyond the physical labor, because you know, after I'm newly 30, and even I know that I can't be out in the field for how much longer can I really be out in the field every day planting and maintaining trees? For someone who's just getting into this in their late 50s and 60s, but has other skills, you know, how do we retain them? What are the opportunities for them in our field?
Thank you. Our next question is, are your classes that you offer, we went over some of the curriculum things, are they offered over Zoom? Are they all in person? And is it possible to audit one of your classes?
So they are all in person. The training program is 100% in person. We don't offer online opportunities for our our trainees to make up hours. Um, that said, we can record some of the presentations that we do offer to the community. There is some similarity there, and we can share those with folks. I also would say, like, we welcome guests if you want to make the drive to Stockton. Um, yeah, we're very much hands-on in person, and we can do that because we're funded by this massive state grant that allows us to have a budget to provide like bus passes and um, car share waivers and vouchers so that people can get to work despite any barrier of transportation.
Okay, and then I think what we've got one comment slash question in the chat, and then I'm going to open it up to the whole group. We had someone just say that they really loved your land and immersion component, and thank you so much for sharing the challenges that many people don't want to continue as urban foresters. And then they asked your idea of offering specialized tracks post program is intriguing. And may I kindly ask, how have you been able to sustain funding with like lower cohort numbers? I think is what is being asked here, lower placement numbers.
Yeah, we so we our first grant, we hit about 70% of 75% of our graduation rate, and across the board for all of the TCC workforce development programs, job placement was pretty low. Is just a major challenge for folks. And so we were, I think, fortunate to get a second round of funding despite that. And we are really like across the, I say we're one of many workforce development programs in TCC. For Stockton, there's a Grid Alternatives. They do a solar panel installation job training program. There's another group called Rising Sun, which does green appliance installation trainings. And we're the other one. And so there's these three big buckets of work training happening in Stockton. And we all had good graduation rates, but very low job placement numbers. And I think just based off of meetings that I've been in, that's not uncommon. I think that job placement is a real challenge for workforce development. And I think for us too, what we found with urban forestry is that what we're training for, there isn't a huge job market for. There's tree service work. West Coast Arborist is always hiring, and they're re-entry friendly. But they aren't really interested in hiring folks that do what we do. They really want folks that the main thing for them is that, are they going to show up on time? Are they going to be consistent? Are they going to take workplace safety seriously? And so we stress that a lot because we know that the key employer to continue doing tree work is looking for those things. But as far as, community foresters, we're the only people hiring community foresters currently. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but it just really has been a challenge to find placement opportunities, and working with older adults, it is even harder to find folks that are even open to hiring someone in their over 50 with not a lot of experience, and the opportunities are slim, and they're usually very physical work. So it's something that we're still struggling to solve.
Is there anyone that would like to ask a question verbally? You can raise your hand digitally, or you can unmute yourself now and ask a question. Okay, I'm
Okay,
not,
no,
oh, go ahead.
I let everybody else go. I figured I should wait till everybody else asks a question. Hey, Nico.
Hey, Cindy.
Um, you know, I don't think I'd ever realized that you were only working with a cohort of 4 people at a time. Or, and when you said older adult, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so 24 to 28 or something like that. So I guess how did you end up with the smaller cohort? Because some of the grants we've seen in the past, they've had 10 or whatever, 10 interns at a time or something like that. And is it because of bandwidth for Little Manila Rising as far as what you can train at a time, or just more personal attention, or both, or what?
Yeah. So I should have specified our upcoming cohorts are going to be uh four per, but the last three graduating cohorts were 11. Um 11 in each cohort. And yeah, as the only facilitator, it was bandwidth. I couldn't offer the right amount of personalized support to each of the participants as they deserved. Um, I think for as far as transportation went to get to job sites, it was also logistically difficult. We had to rent vans, and usually had to rent two transport vans from Enterprise to get to job sites. Now we own a van, but it's a 6-seater, and so um, the smaller cohorts mean that we can focus more on the experience of each participant. We can offer more individualized one-on-one support and really do a deep dive into what their interests are, and what their needs are, what are the barriers that they hit every day. um I think it also is a little easier to come to a group of 4 than a group of 11. You make a closer bond with your classmates. And for folks in reentry, like having a trusted group of people that you can count on is really important. Um, as far as the age group goes, um, it just so happens that that's the age group that is looking for work in Stockton. And there's a lot of youth that are also interested in our program. And so we say our program is for anybody 18 and up. But in the past, we've really connected with transitional work groups. There's a group here in Stockton called 5 Key Schools and Programs, which you know offers wraparound support and case management. Their population is 38 to 40 and up, and so it just by nature of the partnerships that we've been able to establish early on, um, we were working with an older population. But I think looking at our applicant pool currently, it's a lot wider. We have a lot more interest from folks who are in their 20s and early 30s.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question? And they can unmute yourself if you can, excuse me, you can unmute yourself if you'd like, or just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Give you another few seconds. Any last questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any other ones. So why don't we jump into group discussion? I'm really curious, just of our audience out there, how many organizations, by kind of the show of hands, whether it's virtually, the virtual raise your hand, or over the camera, are involved in a uh, workforce development program or an internship program, or have fellows. Maybe it's a teen forester program. Okay, so we've got some folks that are doing that. Okay, I'm really curious, as a group, um, how many of you also work with private tree care companies, to help connect interns, fellows, volunteers to career opportunities? I'm really curious, and I'd love for you to share if you feel comfortable. So does anybody feel comfortable to share a little bit about how they've been able to help connect folks to possible career opportunities? Mona.
Yes, so this is Mona at Tree Fresno, and we've run three cohorts of a Green Team Ambassador program. In our age group, even though ideally when we started it, or perhaps we thought it would be more like an 18 to 25-year-old program, did extend into the early 40s. So typically at this point, it's 18 to say 30, early 30s, 34. We do work with local landscape contractors and tree service companies that are basically in agreement with the way that we care for trees or obviously the principles of arboriculture, et cetera. So we have some individuals come in from the companies and talk about particular topics, make that introduction to our ambassadors. We typically will have maybe 12 to 15 ambassadors for these cohorts. They're able to ask their questions. The landscape contractor or a private company. And we also work with PG&E, obviously with vegetation management. They're able to talk about their profession, how they got there, their background. Some of the individuals have had, past issues that our team members can also relate to because we have had, formerly incarcerated in our programs as well. But the point is that they're there because they believe in a combination of opportunities and second chances and preparation for this next stage of entry into the workforce. And they will accept candidates for interviewing for positions if they're ready to work. But ready to work means that obviously there's this incorporation into any program that's targeted at this kind of audience like ours to where soft skills are critical. So we have had the case where we have had a team member, a green team member go and interview and they show up smelling like weed. So, it's kind of a no-go, as we know, like in tree service and there's interesting discussion around that too, because we actually have that in our classroom component is having that discussion these days with the age group that doesn't necessarily look at that as a bad thing. They look at it as a personal choice. So the profession versus your personal life, et cetera, how you show up, understanding that they cannot employ you because they cannot actually elevate you in the company because you can't drive any can't thing, you can't use equipment, et cetera. So, but the whole point is that working with the privately owned companies that are looking for skilled and motivated individuals that are willing to start anywhere from, grounds, and up, then they're willing to give our green team members a chance. So I think it's very, very beneficial to have those partnerships in the community.
Hey, thanks for sharing. We appreciate that. Is there anybody else that has anything to share? And it doesn't have to just be tree care, private tree care. Little Manila Rising mentioned that some of their participants worked for Caltrans, which I thought was very, very interesting and cool. I guess my thought is there a certain part of your program that helps connect or introduce your interns, volunteers, workforce development cohort to possible routes of career opportunities? And then how do you do that? So Anne, do you want to share?
Yeah, we're working with seniors in college that are urban studies majors or geography, basically to introduce them to trees being something they can pursue in their career ahead. So it's not in the arboricultural direction, but it's more about the urban forestry. And I think we need that complement as well. And so we're just trying to build that and would love to, and Cindy and I have talked about this, would love to hear about other organizations that are doing this and probably do a lot more networking and alignment so that we can even maybe get some support for that, which is quite different than the workforce, but it's just as important in terms of leading already experienced professionals, young professionals into the urban forestry field.
Is there anybody else out there that wants to share? Okay, that's quite all right. I haven't. Oh, Cindy, go ahead.
Sorry, I always have more questions. The other thing that you mentioned, Nico, was conflict de-escalation, right? Because there's also, we've talked about the socio-emotional skills type of thing.
Yeah.
But conflict and other people, Sandy Bonilla has been talking about it a lot too. When you say conflict de-escalation, was that part of a whole program that was around socio-emotional skills, or how did that come into play?
Yeah, we were able to connect with a trainer through this other program at Little Manila. It's called Healing Puso. It's the mental health support program at Little Manila, and bring in a trainer that offered 2 courses on de-escalation. I mean, obviously there's more that we did with just implementing that into practice, and as part of our team culture, it was, conflict resolution and addressing conflict between team members in a humanistic way, and just taking conflict aside from the field and talking through it, and working through things without violence is just it was part of how we built our team culture. But we did bring in a facilitator to offer a training to our program.
And Cindy, were you asking like how did that come about? Like why we were why that was important for us to incorporate it into the trainees skill set?
I I just think it's really smart. So, and as far as how it came about that you incorporated it, of course, I always like to hear the stories that what led you to it. But I'm only talking about these things because it became really clear when the first job or workforce development program started that there was a whole thing about preparedness, and like you said, just being able to get to the office or wherever the site on time is a major barrier in a lot of cases. So everybody's learning things are great. So what else is the background on this, Bree?
Yeah, I'll just share that I think in addition to just like a team having this like be something like a part of our culture, like really early on, like when we were first implementing the project, we recognized that there were community members who felt a certain type of way towards trees, or a negative type of way towards trees, where we've started to identify as tree trauma, where when we would ask people about like if you would come to our event and like plant trees with us, some responses would be like, well, what's the point if nobody's going to take care of them? And I think from there that also changed our approach and our view of how trees, we're not just planting trees, but that when we plant a tree, there's emotion, there's lots of context that we need to consider, because of the history that we know, that we're working in a community that has been disinvested in or has seen no investment for many generations. And so like, what does that do to people? Is where we like started to really ask ourselves like, you and really prepare ourselves for how we can really meet people where they're at. And so conflict resolution was something that, made a lot of sense for how we could meet people where they're at with their negative feelings around trees, because it's a very emotional topic. And people forget. I I think we could often forget that as people who plant trees, that it's not just about trees, but it's also about the people too, and the environments that we're creating. and that we can't separate the trees and and people in the community.
We've got another question in the chat, unless Cindy, you have something to follow up? No?
No, I was just going to say thank you, because that wasn't what I was expecting. And that when you talked about the trauma, it was that, yeah, you're going to raise our hopes, you're going to plant trees here, and then nobody's going to take care of them and they're going to die. And, you know, there have been all these questions about counting on residents to take care of the trees, which is not entirely fair. So yeah, thank you very much, Bria. I'm going to have to think about that because there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Megan,
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead, Nico.
I was just gonna add that we also had community members frequently confuse our trainees and our staff for city employees. And so there's a lot of emotion that just to build off of what Bree was saying, that people have a lot of very heightened opinions about their city staff. And we've had to we've had incidents with residents and community members being upset at the city and directing it to our staff, because it's never been seen before in our community, you know, groups actively taking care of the parks in a proactive way. And so yeah, like it was a lesson learned, basically, that, you know, we needed to equip ourselves to handle that type of feedback, but also prepare the trainees for that type of incident, but also just going into jobs where people are going to question or challenge you. You know, it's a really critical skill, like what Mona was saying. There's a difference between the personal and the professional, and you know, conflict resolution is really critical, because, you know, someone has their fallback or their default position when someone challenges them, and you know, it's always good to, you know, challenge yourself to approach things differently. I saw the question in the chat about dealing with space constraints. Basically, we don't plant in a space that's less than 4 feet wide. I've like gotten the green light that we could squeeze like smaller trees like redbuds in 3-foot wide strips. But I wouldn't do that because you know, I wouldn't do that unless I knew that the city wasn't going to rip up that sidewalk in the next like 10 years to redo the sidewalk. But we've really pivoted to doing front yard plantings. That's been the workaround, is we're less and less able to do strip plantings in our community, and have really pivoted to an outreach based model to plant trees at on people's front lawns. And so Bree's role and her team is focused on going door to door based off of the site locations that my team marks on Tree Plotter, and doing a targeted outreach to get folks to, and I say get folks to, but you know, talk to them about the benefits of having a tree on their front yard, and the cost benefits for energy savings, and the shade, and the privacy that a tree can have in front of their, you know, giant bay window. And we've had varying success with that. We've currently planted on 17 properties for a total of 66 trees, and 17 of those have been at a school, and 8 of them have been at a church. And so you know, we're looking at, you know, what are the other, you know, who are the other landholders in Stockton, because we haven't had a ton of success with residents yet. We found that we have the most success with residents when we can do a bigger public planting at like a park in the area, and folks get to see us work, and then they see us come out and maintain those trees over, you know, the next year. they know that we are going to show up and like take care of that tree after the fact. We aren't going to like plant and run. It's really a trust building exercise. And we don't always get those folks to want a tree, but we have the patience and some flexibility with our funding to be a little patient, and work at finding the public planting strips that can work, and making those public planting days, and then going out with our community foresters and just planting those locations and doing routine maintenance on those trees, so that folks know that we're committed to the process, and they can trust that when we plant a tree on their property, they're going to be supported, because we do offer 3 years of support to establish that tree. We set up a tree diaper on their tree. We go out, and if somebody messes the stake up, we replace it. If the tree has any signs of decline, they can reach out to us, and we'll come out and do an assessment and recommend a removal. Or we deal with a lot of vandalism too, and so if folks report a tree that's been vandalized in front of their house or nearby, we're pretty quick to respond to those, and that's really our way of building trust. Okay, I see space constraints for running your program. I think we've just been working within our means. Our LMR does have an office. We own our building, and so we have some community space where we hold our classes. But we try to be out in the field as much as possible. We have a gigantic storage container for tools, and we have a pretty large lot to park our vehicles. So we're in a good position for space. We just know that we need to grow because we are hiring more people. And indoor parking for our vehicles is kind of critical, because we don't want like our catalytic converters to be stolen, or we've had some tools stolen out of our lot already. And so just getting everything indoors and locked at night is really kind of our main concern. And then where there's with so many different programs operating out of our office, it can get distracting. And so we just really want to be able to focus on urban forestry and training people, and have our home base that we can grow into. But luckily it hasn't really been a huge distraction for us.
Okay, I kind of have a follow-up question to, I guess, to you, and I guess to all the network members joining us. How do you go about recruiting your cohort? Is there specific community engagement that you do? Is there community places of centers that people go and visit that you have flyers or information? How do you go about doing that? And then for other people with their programs as well, we'll let LMR start. And then I'm just curious, and how do you recruit people into your existing workforce development or internship programs, et cetera?
Yeah, I'm going to talk briefly about how we've recruited with partnerships, and then I'm going to pass it to Bree to talk about our outreach strategy. We've primarily recruited through partnerships over the last 3 years. I mentioned 5 key schools and programs. They have an office just down the street from us, and so we've gone to them with the job description for the training program, and asked them to share it out to their participants who are close to finishing their 2-year contract with them, as a next step. And we also have tried to just be a job site for their current participants, so they could split their time in the transitional work program, it's called Back to Work, and they basically go out onto Caltrans right away and do litter abatement. They could split part of their work week doing that and then be with us the other part of the week. So we've gone to partners and said, hey, this is an opportunity for folks that you're working with, can we come out and do like an info session with them where we've had, 60 or 70, participants from Five Keys come and listen to me talk about the opportunity. And they have the chance to ask questions about, what are the requirements, what are the, and do you need like a background in it? Do I need a driver's license? It's a really great way to go to people and tell them, hey, this is out here for you if you're interested. And it also really is, if you don't have a ton of staff time, doing something like that is a great way to avoid like the demand of doing an outreach strategy and using social media to try and get folks to enroll in your program, because you can really do a lot with an hour at their site. You're maximizing your numbers in an hour. You might hit the same amount of people over a month doing social media. If you go to these types of programs that are in every city, and telling them about the opportunity that you're offering. And then we've kind of changed that this year. And so I'm going to pass it to Bree, who's really leading our outreach.
Yeah, like Nico had said, we sort of pivoted from just broadening our reach to not just these partnerships, but also just like ways that we do outreach is social media. We do have like social media posts, and a lot of it is tabling, like trying to go to the places where we know there's going to be a lot of people there, because I think something that I've noticed and something that people really appreciate is talking to a person versus like receiving an email, and then because even that could be like intimidating of like and overthinking like how to write like the perfect email. And so sometimes just like having that like in-person interaction really helps people to one, get all their questions out that they may have, and then like also get a sense of the people that are behind the program and get like more familiar and comfortable and figuring out if this is something that they like really want to do, just within that interaction. Yeah, so we try to attend lots of resource fairs, and just tabling opportunities. Yeah, I'd say that's really it.
Yeah, it sounds like making that personal connection is really critical at those events, and maybe reduces the scary barrier of applying, right? When they know somebody, I think that connection. So thank you for sharing. Is there anybody else out there that likes to share some of their strategies that they've used to recruit people for their programs? And we're kind of coming down to the end of our time here. So I'm not seeing anybody's hand come up, but that's okay. But thank you so much. I wanted to say thank you so much for, oh, go ahead, Nicolas. You go ahead.
Yeah, I just one more note. If you're a group that's interested in focusing on the working with folks who are formerly incarcerated, we have been able to build a really good partnership with Insight Garden Program, which does horticulture and plant-based education and healing inside the prisons. And so those men and women who are getting out are already coming with a background in working with plants and understanding the principles of horticulture that are really valuable for groups like ours. They're already coming with a passion to work with plants and are on a really profound healing journey that our types of programs can support those journeys continuing after they get out. And so we actually were able to, this past month, go into the the California Medical Center here in Stockton, which is a minimum security prison, where they have a couple gardens and present our program to them as an opportunity for them when they get out, if they parole to Stockton. That's it's a really important piece to doing reentry work, is finding ways to be there before they get out, and knowing that there's an opportunity waiting for them if they're interested. And so if it is a path that you're interested in exploring for your community, IGP is a great resource.
That is really cool. Thank you so much for sharing about that. I'm going to have to look that organization up. I think that's fascinating. Thank you so much, Little Manila Rising, for coming and presenting today. Incredible presentation, so many resources and things to think about. I applaud you all for all the good work that you're doing, and the focus on environmental justice is incredible. So thank you for your time. Thank you to all of our network members who could come today to learn from LMR and their team. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And like I said, I will be sending you the recording later this week. So thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.